And then there's this. House Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul, pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of driving under the influence. That was in a car accident back in May. A criminal complaint claimed that Pelosi had a drug in his system the night of the accident. But Napa County prosecutors are now walking that back. This is complicated stuff. Jason Rantz with us. They're walking back the idea that he had a drug in his system. Sort it out, please.
Yeah, so when we're looking at some of these cases, there is a rubber stamp element to some of the charges, because when you're looking at certain statutes, when you're looking at certain laws, they include more than one issue. And sometimes it's really just about the one issue, not the other, that ends up getting put into the paperwork. I kind of live in this space in a more general sense, obviously in Washington, and I've seen lots of errors like this. And we call them errors. They might not technically be an error just because that is the way it works. I've seen misspellings of the names of suspects on top of it. It seems sloppy to an outsider, and I think that there is a lot of criticism to be put into the process, but I don't necessarily view this as evidence of some sort of cover-up, unless we have some actual evidence that there was a drug in his system, and we just haven't seen that yet.
Story about what Paul Pelosi was actually doing that night. Was his response to the police officers? What did he do with the police? Have we any details on that?
Yeah, well, we haven't seen the details yet, but obviously, you know, when we're talking about body cam footage, that's incredibly important, or dash cam footage. When we go through this process, the important part here is to make sure that he's not actually getting special treatment. I think that automatically there's going to be this assumption, because of the Pelosi name, that there might be some favoritism shown here. Yet at the same time, as you talked about in the last segment, in New York, you've got criminals who are committing violent acts and are getting treated pretty lightly. And I'm wondering if we're going to see that happen here in this case. Not because of Paul Pelosi, just because of left-wing policies.
Oh, okay. I want to change the subject, because we've got a parental rights organization suing a school district in Iowa. They say the school's policies allow students to make decisions about their gender identity without parental consent. Jason, that's in Iowa. Is this kind of thing common throughout the country?
It is, and I'm glad you point out that this is Iowa, because you would have this assumption that maybe in a more red state that you wouldn't get this kind of egregious violation of parental rights, and yet it's happening there, and frankly it's happening across the country. This isn't even the worst kind of policy that I've seen. There has been this movement by educators to pretend that they're the actual parents, that you as a parent, you're not truly in charge because you might make the wrong decision on how to raise your kid, especially when it comes to gender identity. But the fact of the matter is, there are kids who, during a certain age, might be confused, and they're certainly being pushed in a certain direction when it comes to gender. And I think that the best way to deal with that is to actually have parental involvement, bringing parents together with their kids instead of tearing these families apart. I think parents need to look at this and say very clearly, we need to take better control of our districts, our school districts, and make sure that we're constantly communicating with the school about our expectations, but more importantly, with the child. Have these conversations, be open about it, and I think we'll be able to push back against this.
I would really like to know why it's necessary to have gender preference conversations with 4-, 5-, 6-year-olds. I just don't see that at all. All right, thanks very much.
Political.
Jason,
Yeah.
Right. Jason, thanks. Still ahead, Katie